Hello and welcome back to How the Race Was Won from Escape Collective. I'm Dane Cash. I'm here with bike racing analyst extraordinaire Cosmo Catalano. Cosmo, we've just watched not one, but two World Tour stage races wrap up. We're going to start the show with Paris-Nice, where the defending champion defended. He did it by being great when it mattered most, several different moments during the race. What's the headline from Matteo Jorgenson's Paris-Nice victory?
I would say the headline is Visma Lisa Bike masters the art of war.
I've already chef's kissed so many of your things. I don't know what's better than that. But as a lover of history, I think you know I'm going to love that one. In what ways are Grisha Nierman and Matteo Jorgenson channeling Sun Tzu in this race? Bring us to the moment where we're really seeing this here.
I was going to say, to fight and conquer all your battles is not supreme excellence. Supreme excellence consists in breaking the enemy's resistance without fighting, which is basically what Visma did at this year's Paris-Nice.
Maybe they'll do a Paris Tour as well. Yes. Do we want to show maybe something from today's stage? So
Sure.
We watched stage 8 today. Now, Jorgenson's in the lead already. Let's go to today's stage. He's already got a lead. But I think
he's got a GC lead.
He's already got a GC lead. One great way to look at the way they took this race is they took no chances. They even lost the Tour de France Tour de France two-time winner. And then they just sort of refocused or focused entirely on Matteo Jorgenson rather than having a two-pronged approach. All right, so today's stage, we're in the mountains in and around Monaco and Nice.
Can you pause it? I'll pause it.
Yeah. Take us here. Take us to what's happening here.
Yeah, I mean, Magnus Sheffield. He's American. You don't say Magnus, you say Magnus. He's making his attack kind of up the inside, out of the train of riders. And you can see, if you look carefully over, I believe it's Foss's shoulder there, a black helmet. And that's Matteo Jorgenson's. His helmet is yellow on the front. It's black on the sides. That's how you know he's looking back. He sees Sheffield coming. He has all the opportunity in the world to react, to chase, to do something. And he doesn't do any of that. This goes by. He kind of stays there. Foss is looking back. He's ready to chase him if he attacks. He's nope, not doing anything. A couple of moments later, we see that Sheffield has the gap. Look back. Jorgenson's on the radio basically saying, let me know if he gets far enough up the road that my lead is in danger. This is the plan. And we'll see if you can jump to the images I uploaded.
Yes. Let's go to, well, we've got a couple. Chase 1, maybe?
Chase 1, yes.
Yeah. All right. So here we are. Yeah. Almeida on the front.
Yeah. Joao Almeida trying an attack, and Jorgenson not chasing him down, doesn't care. You know, he's going to let Ineos do the work of chasing him down. If you flip through 2 and 3, you'll see that I've just annotated where they Foss and Jorgenson are in this.
Yeah.
That's
back here. Yeah, you
can't even see him. He's resting, doing nothing. And basically just uses Ineos now because they have Sheffield up the road. They want him to at least win the stage. Maybe he can move up in GC. He knows he's got a team that's got 3 riders in this group where he is alone by himself. He's basically converted his potential enemy into an ally. And this is very much right out of the art of war, which is on the ground of intersecting highways, join hands with your allies. And there are intersecting highways. That they're, I don't know if it helps that much they're American. I think it helps that Sheffield's a stage win threat and can move up on GC. So Ineos is highly motivated to try and keep people from chasing him down. And Jorgenson, he's got 2.5 minutes, probably not going to lose that. So he doesn't really have to worry about him. It's just very smart racer.
He's got all that time because of some really great tactics earlier in the race, which I want to get to in a second. But first, let's point out here, not a lot of yellow in this group.
No yellow, zero yellow.
The Visma team did really good throughout the race. And then on the final stage, they had already set up Matteo Jorgenson to be in a really good spot so that when they didn't have a lot of teammates for this climber-friendly day, I mean, remember, they lost Jonas Vingegaard. He had crashed. It didn't matter. They were able to change up, adapt, do something differently, find allies on the road in Ineos. Really great work. So let's rewind a little to talk about some of the other things that they did over the course of the week. I mean, obviously, we don't need to talk about this too much. First of all, because it was a week ago. Second of all, because as you know, Cosmo, I don't really love them that much. Team time trials. They did a great job.
That you don't love them with the new kind of lead out format that they have. I think it really does kind of spice them up a little bit. And part of that is, you had, it sort of reveals what your GC contender is. And yet we had both Vingegaard and Jorgensen coming into the line together. And it's very much, all warfare is based on deception. There was no tipping of the hand what their plans might have been in that time trial.
Excellent point. I mean, coming out of this and then into the next stage, even there's plenty of question marks on who is the team leader at Visma. Because going into the race, I saw an interview with Jorgensen where he said something to the effect of like, well, Vingegaard wants to go to the race. We're just, whatever he wants, he gets, which makes sense. He's a Tour de France winner. But even during this race, as you're pointing out, they made sure not to make it entirely clear if they were backing one rider over the other. And I don't think they really were backing one rider over the other necessarily. I think they were going in with a open plan of seeing how things would pan out, who would do well. That was actually quite useful for them because the day after the TT, Jorgensen looked better. He also kind of attacked a teammate in the race lead, but that's fine. And then the day after that, Jorgensen takes the lead again because Vingegaard crashed and hurt himself.
Were you saying on stage the day after the TT that Vingegaard sort of attacked Jorgensen? Was that what the...
That's what I'm going for.
Yeah. It was interesting how well Visma played that relative to their Vuelta a few years back, where they were very there was a whole thing where like after the stage, Jorgensen and Vingegaard are both there, both kind of like beat up and tired and be like, oh man, I really screwed it up. And Jorgensen's like, no big deal. Like that was the plan. It didn't work out. No, no worries. And it seemed very well handled compared to the last time where you're sort of like, what is this team doing? Do they have any idea how they plan to manage these potential leaders?
It does. And we should point out even that Vuelta, Sepp Kuss, even that Vuelta, they still finished on all three spots on the podium, right? Yep. So it worked out in the end. And then again, here, having this dual leader approach seems to have worked out because Vingegaard crashes. At first, it didn't seem like that big of a deal. Or, I mean, he got back to riding. He lost some time. Jorgensen retook the race lead, but it wasn't apparent at first that Vingegaard was going to leave the race. The very next morning, he's out of the race. Seems like a low point. I mean, this team loses Jonas Vingegaard, and it ended up being like probably the best day of the race for them. And it wasn't. I mean, if you look at the route of the stage, it didn't appear to be the kind of stage that Matteo Jorgenson would pick up a big chunk of time on guys like Lenny Martinez and Joao Almeida, because the stage 6 route had a pretty flat finish, and yet Visma tacticked their way to a really impressive day.
Attack him where he is unprepared and appear where you are not expected. Another maxim from the Art of War here. Maybe so unexpected that the ASO was not ready for it because by the time camera switched on, the gap was established. We didn't really see the real nitty gritty of how it broke down. Probably talk more about Mess Pedersen later, but he somehow managed to get his way into the second Jumbo or Visma Lease Bike team time trial of the tour. And a lot of other people who maybe should have been ready for it weren't.
Yeah, I'm wondering why? Like, why wouldn't you be ready for that? I guess just because you're thinking Visma's going to play it conservatively, maybe?
They're in the lead. It's a sprint day on paper. It's been miserable. Like, there are clear points later in the race where you have opportunities to gain time, establish a lead. And I think it was real easy to fall asleep. You could kind of hear Visma put out a video on social media where they're kind of going over their strategy for the day. And he's like, hey, this is, we don't know that the wind is going to let us break things open here. But if we're at the front coming over the top of the climb, we're already there. The descent will line things out. If there's enough wind, we can split it. If not, it's a sprint day. And yeah, it was just being prepared, having that plan on paper and conditions lined up to make it doable. And they did it.
Yeah, the conditions at this race, we haven't talked about it much, but I mean, there was a race that was neutralized. They had to change some of the routes. As ever, Paris-Nice threatened to be, derailed by weather. This happens very often in this race. Also Tirreno. And it was. I mean, there were stages that were pretty heavily derailed by the weather. Visma didn't appear to have been negatively affected by that too much. Jorgensen said at the end of the race that he was really cold on one of the stages, but at the end of the day, they really took advantage more than anyone of the weather on this stage 6 day where they blew up the bunch. They forced echelons. They're coming off it was the Côte de Beauce de Provence, something like 70K out. And yeah, then I did love that they kind of took a victory lap by they took the video that morning of them discussing the plan, and then they posted on social media as sort of a way to say, hey, look, we had this plan and it worked out to perfection and we're awesome. And I liked that. I'm cool with that. Another example of them just not taking any chances and making sure that they are taking advantage of every opportunity. They're not going to be lazy. They're not going to rest on their laurels.
I would say also on stage 7, or maybe after stage 7, you could see them really. I mean, do you want to talk about anything specific on stage 7 other than it was a GC day that didn't really materialize because everyone was just frozen?
Yeah, the weather. I mean, the weather seems like another way.
Well, I was going to say after the stage, the interview with Storer, with Michael Storer, I think the stage winner.
Yeah.
He was in a puffy coat, in a hat, freezing to death, like shivering, shaking, still sticking it out and doing the interview because he's a tough guy. And then moments later, we had Jorgenson, in just the yellow jersey and a cap, like clearly not freezing to death. And you get in these cold days where you're soaking wet, like water takes the heat out of your body so quickly. You have this really narrow window where you're basically, you finish the race and you're kind of warm-ish because you've been riding up a big mountain. If you immediately get dry clothes, get hot fluids, and you get a puffy coat on, get everything on, like you handle that transition perfectly, you don't end up freezing. And the window there is like minutes, after the finish. And to see the difference between how Tudor got their stage winner ready for the interview and how Visma got their GC leader ready for the interview, night and day. And to me, it kind of speaks to this preparation they had. They knew it was going to be a cold day. They knew they were going to be up on top of the ski area. Very much another art of war thing where it's like an army without its provisions is lost. Without a supply of bases, it's lost. So.
And that army, by the way, Jorgenson wasn't always a part of that army. He used to be a part of a different army, an army that is sometimes criticized for not being quite as much of a well-oiled machine as a Visma. I'm talking about Movistar. And yet Tudor, yes, you might be a Swiss team, Swiss watches, I expect to be a well-oiled machine, but really Visma's showing that they get the little things right too. And that was impressive. And then here on the final stage, we've already talked about it a fair bit. Again, Jorgenson did everything right. He didn't follow when he didn't really have to follow, still ended up finishing second on the day. Just all around. Well, great.
Again, like he could have just sat on and let Ineos do all the work. But instead, he kind of waited for people to fall into this Ineos-led trap.
Yes.
And Florian Lipovitz, guilty number 1 on the list here in second place. All of a sudden there is a short uphill, maybe a K or two to a sprint point for some reason. And Jorgenson just kind of goes to the front and attacks. And you can actually see one of the not Vlasov, one of the other Red Bull riders is kind of on the radio, like, Florian, where are you? He's going up the road. And you can see Lipowitz way back in the peloton, like just starting to respond. And it's very much, the whole day from this point, Jorgenson was very much like, I'm going to get up the road, get in front on these climbs. People can try to take time from me if they want. Very much if you can occupy a narrow pass first, you get it strongly garrisoned and let your enemy come to you. It's just just beautiful stuff.
Yeah, totally. And I think, with Red Bull coming into the race, Vlasov and Lipovitz, another sort of like dual 2-pronged approach, potentially. It was Visma, the one that really executed it well, with really not missing a beat at all, which I wrote about this over on escapecollective.com. Go check that out. That's the top of the GC leaderboard. To sum it up, Jorgenson defends his title. Really impressive ride across the week. Lipovitz second overall. Team Arnsman was third. I thought Ineos did a really great ride. And then our 4th place finisher, Magnus Sheffield, great stage win, finishing 4th overall. And I was really impressed with the way that he held his gap. Once he had gone solo off the front, once he had worked his way up off the front today, I felt like there was a pretty significant stretch where I'm just staring at the gap, expecting it to come down, and it didn't. And that, to me, says a lot about Sheffield's solo abilities, his big engine. And that bodes very well for him for the future. He's still very young. We've already seen him take some.
I'm glad he didn't crash.
Yes, me too.
It's happened before.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Who else impressed you? We've got stage hunters to talk about as well. Anything that we should hit on in that department?
It's good to see Felix Gall really active. I don't know that it played really well to his abilities. There was a lot of, he occasionally gets spooked by downhills, doesn't love the cold weather, but he was animating the race. Obviously Pedersen, we should probably talk about because he was all over the place.
Absolutely. Well, let's jump to that. Actually, let's talk Pedersen. Have we ever seen anything like that from Pedersen before?
We have, well, not from Pedersen, but we have seen this before. It's just this is a classic Tor Hushovd yellow or green jersey points raid where a large sprintery Norseman goes up the road and takes all the points they can get. And it's a good thing he did because it was fairly tight between him and Jorgensen.
I have to admit, we're watching. I'm watching on the U.S. broadcast. Bob Roll and I guess Christian Vandeveld were talking about the points classification, and when they were talking about how Pedersen needed to do this, I'm like, there's no way he's going to lose the points, right? And then I went and checked, and he actually almost did, and it was because that he was so aggressive today. But yeah, just if you see him out on the roads with some of these climbers, he's a really big guy, and you don't expect him to be doing these climbs. I mean, the penultimate climb, or was the last climb of the day was really steep, double-digit gradients, and he managed to, just all throughout the day. It didn't really seem like he was struggling nearly as much as I would have expected. So sorry for having those low expectations for you, Mess Pedersen. Is he going to be attacking over the post show? Is he going to win Sanremo?
It wouldn't surprise me. I think if it's rainy and cold, he definitely has a tremendous advantage there. It was cool to see him beating Jorgensen to the line on the biggest mountain day of the race to actually get the final green jersey point.
Wild.
And I mean, there's a lot of cycling that's deeply analytical, heavily driven by numbers. Like watts per kilo is definitely important, but also there are a lot of variables. Like when it's freezing cold, if you are a bigger guy, you have more thermal mass, you retain your heat better, you're less affected by that. And I think that was a great illustration of it from Pedersen at Paris-Nice.
All right. So speaking of classics, let's talk about Jorgensen and the classics, because obviously that's what one of the things that makes him so special is his ability to do this, because he won Paris-Nice last year, of course, and then he went on to win Dwars-Vlaanderen. I think that I'm expecting him to play a pretty significant role on the climbs of E3 and the Tour of Flanders. And I think also that Visma's done a really nice job, maybe unintentionally, because I don't think they intended for Jonas Vingegaard to crash and hurt his hand, of keeping the Vassals happy. And I think they've done a nice job with that. And I expect more of it in the weeks to come from Matteo Jorgenson. I want to talk about an underperformer. With apologies to Joao Almeida, I don't think you can get away with this too much on UAE and expect to keep leading races. He went in as one of the top favorites for the overall. He did have a day where he looked great. He won a stage, of course, but he also struggled at points and ended up finishing 6th overall. He's at a crowded team, right? Like you've got that Juan Ayuso fellow. We're going to talk about him in the second half of the show, right? You also have the Tadej Pogačar guy, right? You've got a lot of riders. You've got Yates, and Almeida, 26, gets opportunities to lead in the stage races. Hasn't done that much in the GC department of stage races. Yes, he's won the Tour of Poland. Respect for that. Yeah, I'm just thinking that he's probably feeling the heat a little bit.
Yeah, this is a really atypical. Well, first of all, is he on the team to win 1 week stage races, or is he on the team to do Isaac Del Toro things like we saw? Like his job is to help Pogačar win the Tour de France, and he's very good at that. I'm sure
that's why Mauro pays him, right? But like, I think he probably wants to win Paris-Nice.
I mean, I'm sure given the opportunity, he would win whatever race he had the opportunity to win. He's still got a stage here. He got a stage here on one of the harder days.
And it was very impressive.
Yep.
Gross weather.
Yeah, I'm sure he would love to have won this race, but at the same time, like, I don't think UAE is going to fire him. I don't think UAE is going to say no more 1 week stage races for you. I think they're still going to have guys that, they're putting together a Tour of Poland team. They're not going to be like, well, we can't bring Almeida. He didn't do well at Paris-Nice.
My thought is more that if Almeida wants to lead the Vuelta team, he may now find that he's got 2 riders that UAE is favoring over him for that job, perhaps.
Okay.
Let's flip it though. The unheralded riders. I want to put some shine on Tobias Foss, because I feel like he, as a teammate, was excellent. He set up Sheffield really well today. He was the one pushing at the front. He was ready to police the chasers. If we saw the still, he was the one that's waiting for Jorgensen to maybe chase. And then while all of that's happening, Tobias Foss, big guy, time trial star, still managed to do really well. overall. He was 9th overall in this race. This is a former world time trial champion. He's 74 kilos. Yeah, I'm really impressed by Tobias Foss. And I feel like that is the sort of Ineos teammate performance of the days of yore, where like teammates mattered more because they were also fighting for GCs more than they are now. So yeah, good on you, Tobias Foss. Throwback Ineos or Sky even ride to do that, to do everything he did all week. I thought he was great.
I can't hear his last name without thinking free and open source software.
I wonder if he gets that a lot. If there's a lot of
probably
developers
not.
in his life, yeah, probably not. While we've been doing all of this, the folks over in our StreamYard chat, our members, have been dropping some comments, and I want to like hone in on a few of those now. I want to, first of all, Cafe Rider, our friend Cafe Rider, just keeping us entertained and busy all the time. Love that. I liked the way that Tudor rode in this race, and I want to get back to it because they did more to impress me as well at Tirreno. Julian Alaphilippe being a teammate for Michael Storer, yeah, great teammate work from a former world champion. I liked that. Definitely not Cayley pointing out that his fake team that we drafted over on the Spin Cycle podcast had a great day. Both Magnus Sheffield and Matteo Jorgenson, members of his fake team. If you are wondering what I'm talking about, then first listen to Spin Cycle, second go to the Escape Collective website. Yeah, so definitely not Cayley. I acknowledge that Juan Ayuso did win Tirreno-Adriatico, so I'm also pretty happy. Yeah, I think the other thing to talk about, though, with Cayley's comment, maybe a little bit more worth digging into, is the way that Ineos is. Yeah, I mean, Tobias Foss, Magnus Sheffield, riding in a way that is entertaining and successful. They won the stage today. Do we like them again? I don't know that I ever disliked them that much, but I feel like they have some guys that are easy to root for. Certainly helps that Magnus Sheffield is a 22-year-old American. Yeah, are you expecting more of this kind of thing from the other members of the Ineos squad here, Cosmo?
I don't know. Again, this is such an atypical stage race.
True.
Especially this year. I agree that I like to watch teams race like Ineos raced here. It almost feels a little bit like they're racing like Uno X, which I am always here for. I think they're still going to be under pressure to do Team Sky things at big stage races, and I think that will rob us, the cycling enjoying audience, of what they could be doing, like what we saw today.
In other forward-looking questions, last one for Paris-Nice here from Jeff Liu. Do we think Metz can hold a swarm to Roubaix? I do think that, actually. I think Pedersen's going to be pretty heavily involved in contending for all the classics. Roubaix may be his best shot. Yeah, hard to say, but I think he can. I think in the past, the biggest thing that has been an issue for him has just been staying upright, and hopefully that is not an issue for him this year.
He should just go off the front, like 70K out.
He's been
trying to do that in previous
Roubaix. Interesting. It would be interesting for someone who's not named Tadej Pogacar to do that, or Van der Poel is the other one who does that.
Is Pogacar still teasing Roubaix, or have we backed out?
I don't know. I feel like his team keeps downplaying it, and I still don't know that he's decided personally. We'll find out. But yeah, I think Pedersen can hold his form. The other thing is, like, yeah, we look at what he saw today, and we're like, well, what we saw today, and we're like, okay, well, this is the best we've ever seen him. Can he hold on? Well, what if he's still just tuning up? Like, he's still got more to go. Maybe this wasn't even his final form ahead of the classics.
I think of him outsprinting Van der Poel at Gent-Wevelgem last year, and all he has to do is do that at a race at any of his choice of classics. Like,
yeah,
he is. I think he is the top nod Van der Poel contender, unless a different Van Aert than we saw earlier this season shows up. So
yeah. All right, I think we've covered Paris-Nice enough. I hope we've covered it enough. If not, our members can feel free to comment. If you're not a member and you don't think we covered enough of Paris-Nice, then go become a member and then tell us that. You can do that over at escapecollective.com/join. Because cycling is cycling, there's a whole nother World Tour stage race that happened this week over in Italy. Man, Tirreno-Adriatico. You just mentioned how Paris-Nice was a little bit atypical. I feel like Tirreno-Adriatico a little more traditional. What's the headline from Juan Ayuso's Tirreno-Adriatico win?
The headline is we've seen this movie before. It's
yes.
This is the remake that, I guess was expected, but not particularly wanted.
Yeah. UAE just kind of dominated.
We've seen enough bike races like this.
Yeah. Well, first of all, there weren't that many GC stages. I'm going to grouse about that in a little bit. But second of all, on the ones that there were, UAE was fully in control. We saw that time trial where Ayuso, laid the groundwork, and then we saw him do his thing on the GC day, because that's what you really need to do. You need to be the team that takes control, and I think that's exactly what they did. Is there a moment here where we should kind of hone in on?
I was just going to do the TA Pidcock stop.mp4.
Yeah. Okay. Sounds great.
Do I have
can be a burden.
Oopsie.
Yeah.
The sound
audio. Yeah. Okay. Great.
Whee.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So basically, Pidcock turns his head here, and this is it. Like, he has been doing all the work responding to Ayuso, who he's been doing a good job at it, and he's been doing all the work responding to Ayuso, and Ayuso's actually been pretty patient, not going too deep. He kind of makes an acceleration, Pidcock holds on, makes an acceleration, Pidcock holds on. This is the point where Pidcock's like, guys, someone else has to do some work here. And they don't. And it's very impressive because Ayuso is able to open a gap very quickly, very strong, steady riding. It's not always easy. Like, making the separation is almost easier than holding the effort afterwards. And Ayuso proves he can do that. And also, after this kind of like trying to make other people work, Pidcock then goes back to doing all the work, drawing the rest of the group up, clearly the second strongest rider in this race.
I want to also point out, so Pidcock, I'm impressed with the way that he and his team have done so far this year. However, we saw the big difference between a UAE and a Q36.5, because this, on stage 6, we saw Isaac Del Toro just hammer at the front and put that firepower of the UAE team on display. And after the race, I mean, Ayuso even said, hey, I had a hard time following. Even I had a hard time following. That's how hard Isaac Del Toro is going. He's putting everyone under pressure to set up this surge from Ayuso. Meanwhile, Pidcock kind of has to do this by himself. So when he doesn't want to chase anymore, there's not a lot left for anyone else to really do. I mean, they just kind of got to watch as we have Juan Ayuso kind of solo away. David de la Cruz had a decent race, I should say. He was 8th overall. And he was kind of there. But yeah, I think in general, UAE's team firepower, just hard to beat. And Juan Ayuso individually, really impressive. In terms of individual performances, though, Filippo Ganna, holy cow. I mean, first of all, winning the time trial. But that's expected.
He didn't win it last year, right? Didn't he lose to Ayuso?
Absolutely. This was a revenge moment for him, coming back, beating Ayuso, because, of course, we had the reverse happen last year. I'm more saying it's expected for him to do well in a time trial. Well, I wouldn't have expected is what we saw for the rest of the week. So, 1 week ago, Ganna wins the time trial. Fine. And then he stays in GC contention throughout this race, which, again, didn't have that many GC stages. But coming into stage 6, your stage 1 winner was still in GC contention. It's kind of wild.
Oh, yeah.
That he was able to do that. And then even on stage 6, where you had this serious uphill climb finish in which Isaac Del Toro is putting the hammer down. Yes, Ganna gets under pressure, but he doesn't crack. He doesn't explode and finish 20 minutes down. And we've seen Ganna on some breakaway stages at the Giro d'Italia be a good climber, but this is by far, I think, the most impressive non-TT performance that I've seen from Ganna. Just not something I expected.
No, and it was great to see him over on stage 5, which was potentially a day where he would lose the race lead, in the mix, fighting with Ayuso and Pidcock. Like, that's the kind of racing I want to see, where you've got a clear, stage race guy, 100% in Ayuso, even though he's had a great season, won some classics earlier this year. You have a real mixed rider, does mountain biking, does 1 days, also does stage races, more of a stage hunter historically than a GC guy. And then Ganna, who is the time trial. All of them were fighting to get to the front, to kind of lead over that last climb into the descent, into the finish. That's cool stuff. I love to see that. Maybe it does come at the expense of more GC days, but yeah.
Yeah, I think there was potential for more GC action too, so I shouldn't complain too much. Your final GC, Juan Ayuso, your clear and obvious winner of the overall title at Tirreno, 35 seconds ahead of Ghana. Ghana did he got up to second on the final stage, which is really, again, just really impressive. Antonio Tiberi finishing third. Overall, the GC was, on the one hand, Ayuso is your clear winner. Like, I didn't feel like this was in doubt. On the other hand, the time gaps were not great because there just weren't a lot of high mountain climbs to stretch out the time gaps. So you have Derek G, Jai Hindley, Tom Pidcock, all within a minute. Mikel Landa just over a minute back. And we ended up getting, I think, what we expected from Juan Ayuso and not what we expected from Philip Ogana in the GC. Outside of the GC, there were quite a few stages for the stage hunters. And I think we can talk about that a little bit. Jonathan Milan. I'm wondering, do we call it? I think he's probably the fastest sprinter right now. I mean, I feel like Jasper Philipsen hasn't shown me enough at the moment. Merlier's looking good.
You saw him earlier in a separate stage race win the only 2 sprinter stays.
We did see that, yeah. But I don't know. I feel like if I see him head-to-head, I'm going to pick Milan right now.
I think it depends on the head-to-head. I think Milan really is a different rider with Toynes or with Consoni, especially leading him out. We saw him looking not totally coherent at KBK, and just came roaring back in this race.
I feel like Little Trek kind of not a lot of fanfare around them suddenly becoming the sprint team because they have both Pedersen and Milan. But yeah, I mean, is anyone else able to win as many sprint stages across the year as that? I feel like that's got to be your top sprint squad. And they do it with good teamwork too. You just mentioned Consoni, who's done a really, really impressive job all year, did a great job in this race. And when Milan gets a good lead out and does Milan things, it's pretty hard to beat him. Yeah, and he showed it in this race. What's it all mean? I think I mentioned Almeida already. Ayuso winning here and Almeida not winning, I think is another example, like another, not great for Almeida if he wants team leadership. So there's that. I mentioned this. I sort of set this up a little. Tudor, I feel like, had a really nice both races, and we're in the middle of this. We're waiting right now. If you check out escapecollective.com, because we're just trying to story on this. We're waiting on wild cards because there's a lot of chatter. The very good second division teams,
are those selected based on results?
Well, here's the
sort
thing.
of objective system.
If you're the Vuelta, the Giro, and the Tour de France, traditionally you have given a wild card invites to the Spanish, Italian, and French teams, respectively. However, after Julien Alaphilippe and Mark Hirschi went to Tudor, after Pidcock went to Q36.5, with Uno X already being a pretty good squad, there's a few second division teams that actually really are quite good this year.
You didn't answer my question about how one gets selected as a wild card.
Well, I think there's a little bit of alchemy there, Cosmo. And
I
think the UCI's fine with the alchemy. And I think the question now is, do we give more slots so that the organizers can give one more invite out while still keeping their selection process entirely arcane? Because it's cycling and you wouldn't want a scientific selection process. So I do think Tudor.
Sure.
I'm not saying that we don't want that. I'm saying the cycling traditionalists don't.
So let's keep millions and millions of dollars in exposure money
away from the tutors.
Up to a completely opaque,
absolutely
corruption-prone process.
Yeah. Why would we not do that? Yes. Over at Tirreno, we had. I should say that Hirschi didn't really do what I expected him to do. He's been quieter this year so far than I expected. However, on the sprint stage, one of the sprint stages that I was mentioning, Michael Zilliard, actually really impressive on stage 2 and great work from Tudor. Meanwhile, Tom Pidcock finishing in the top 10 overall. Yeah, I think both Tudor and Q36.5 acquitted themselves well this week when the eyes of the world were watching. And I can imagine that might help their case of maybe getting those additional slots at the Grand Tours. Meanwhile, not enough GC stages. I don't know. What did you think?
I'm not a huge fan of GC stages. I think you can make GC stages, especially in a 1 week race, more than say in a Tour de France where you've got to survive more than anything else. It's more of a, hey Bug, what are you doing? Head back downstairs, kiddo.
He has GC stage opinions. He might.
Yeah.
No, I agree. I can agree with that because in general, we had some days here. We look at, let's see, stages, was it 6? No, so it's stage 5 at Tirreno. You had a profile where if I'm looking at this ahead of the race, I'm thinking this could have real GC implications. And you pointed this out. It ended up being a breakaway day. But yeah, there could have been action here for sure. And we ended up getting a pretty good race for the stage hunters. I think I just would have wanted a little bit more. Would anybody have challenged UAE anyway? I don't know.
It is nice to have that because there were really just 2 opportunities, and everybody knew what they were going to be. They knew there was going to be the time trial. They knew there was going to be the big mountain finish. To have, put a mountain finish in like stage 4 or something, and then a less big mountain finish at the end of the race. So you have this sort of like GC is set by TT, GC is set by Mountain Day, and then some sort of mixed bag thing like we got at the end of Paris-Nice, where people could take opportunities. GC teams could try stuff. For me, that, but at the same time, like I like the imbalanced stuff because there is this very straightforward, stock. We've seen the movie before 1 week stage race.
Yeah,
like it kind of balances that.
This did feel very stock at points. Weather exception, because there was some horrible weather. I guess that is kind of stock for Tirreno, though. So yeah, let's jump over to the member comments because there's some good ones. I think. I like this from Eric. I wonder what Ghana's career would look like on a more functional team, which is.
I might have to comment on this.
But I don't disagree necessarily, but it is wild that we're talking about this as a dysfunctional team, and they are. But this is the former Team Sky, and the fact that we're wondering this, yeah.
Ghana's. I believe Ghana in an interview said something like, they went back to his old TT position or something with some of the changes. Like I think he was in a TT position last year that he really didn't like. And it may be based on the numbers, based on how many watts he could put out versus his surface drag. It was better, but I think he races more comfortably in the less efficient position. And in a time trial where you're only riding for an hour on a big, long time trial day, I think you can give away extra joules, extra calories to efficiency if you can put out more power. And a lot of it too is mental. Like you've got to feel good. And if you don't feel good, you're not going to be able to push yourself as hard as you need to push yourself to get optimal performance.
That's a key. I like that you use that word there to close out your statement, because that is a key opinion of Ronan McLaughlin, who runs the performance process, which is that you got to feel good to go fast. And I feel, even when I feel good, I still don't go fast, but I believe that I do go faster when I feel good. It's not going to matter. I'm still not a fast person. Anyway, yes. Has Mark Hirschi ever been good at the start of the season? Raphael from France. He did win the first race he rode this year, so I shouldn't trash on him too much. But you're kind of right. He does tend to build towards it, right? And I think his bigger goal, I know his big goals are the Ardennes Classics and possibly the Grand Tour his team may or may not get to ride. So yeah, I shouldn't be too down on him. Yeah, it's mostly later stage or later in the year success.
It's interesting that he came from such a team with such like strong analytical performances. The teams where riders have done well at UAE, and it seemed very unsteady. Seemed like he never really knew when he was going to be good, when he wasn't going to be good. It seemed like the team didn't know. I feel like it might have been a situation that just didn't line up, like personality conflicts or different philosophies in terms of training and fitness and stuff. But we'll see. We'll see how it goes this year.
You're right there. That's unusual for that to be a UAE kind of thing. Although he was still, what was it, like the 5th ranked rider in the world on UAE?
Yeah, I mean, It was more like when he did well, we were surprised instead of
that's a good way
rider on UAE.
Should Matteo? This is a Paris-Nice question, but I love it so much. I'm going to put it up here. Should Matteo be the leader of the Visma's Classic squad? On the one hand, yes, because America. But on the other hand, I think Visma does a great job of doing what they did at this race. Not necessarily saying so-and-so is our one leader, so-and-so has to just do all they can to pull for them. And I think it's what we're going to see in the Classics. Wout van Aert's going to get all the headlines, but I don't think we're going to see Jorgenson going back for bottles or stopping by the side of the road. And I think that's what they should do. I think they should have a multi-leader approach. Christophe Laporte, if he's healthy, should be also in the mix here. Yeah, so there you go. I feel confident, Cosmo, that we have informed people of how these races were won. Any final thoughts here?
I was going to say that I think it's in Visma's advantage that people ask who the leader of their squad should be.
Yeah.
Again, with the warfare based on deception. I mean, we had the same question coming into Paris-Nice, and they utilized it tremendously well. I don't see why the classics would be any different.
We should probably point out that Simon Yates, Visma rider Simon Yates, not really, was 14th overall. So not all great for Visma, but I think they're probably pretty pleased with Paris-Nice enough to not really think about that fact. And I think that's all we got. I feel good about this, Cosmo. That's it for Tirreno and Paris-Nice. There was, of course, another World Tour event today in Italy. Women's Peloton took on Trofeo Alfredo Binda. Turn this off right now if you don't want me to spoil who won. Okay. All right, you had your chance. Elisa Balsamo, third time won. I can't think of a better way for her to prove that she's in form for Sanremo. Wheel Talk will certainly have more on that, I'm sure. Listen to that this week. Cosmo and I will be back again in less than a week for Sanremo. And of course, Escape will have plenty of coverage in the run-up to the first monument of the season. So head on over to escapecollective.com. Also tune into Spin Cycle this week. I'm sure we'll be talking lots about these races and the races that are coming up. Sign up, get access to everything over at escapecollective.com/join, because this is more fun when we are able to talk to you. I really appreciate our members for hopping on and talking with us today. Cafe Rider, definitely not Kaylee. Let's call it there. I've been Dane Cash. Who are you? What was this?
I'm Cosmo Catalano, and that was the How the Race Was Won podcast.